So I will just go ahead and start with the first question, which is what I found to be most promising in regards to Cuba's economic future and its development. And I feel that the most exciting thing, um, or rather the most promising thing, is the opportunities available for entrepreneurs and their excitement within creating something for themselves as well as something for the people. They all were very enthusiastic, and they all found niches that they could insert themselves that were so different. We had someone from the perfumes, we had a lot of tech, we had a guy that did art, um, all varying, but all outside of Cuba, very much real jobs. And so their excitement was really, I don't know, it was intoxicating, as was the country at large. But also, it was really interesting that the excitement wasn't just for themselves, as I feel like you more often than not find in the US. People are very their company. They shouldn't be, but they are. But the Cuban people's ability to look out for all and realize that a rising tide, rising tide rises all boats. I forgot it. Their ability to kind of go ahead and tap into that was really amazing. I remember one of the entrepreneurs, he said that he welcomed competition because increased competition for him meant increased demand on the state, and they had to then pay attention to them and they had to begin considering allocating resources towards them. So that, to me, in their almost mature way of thinking about it, despite the fact that some of the country is so set back, was really promising to me, and really made me aware of the fact that they knew what they were doing. They just needed the resources, which kind of brings me to my biggest challenge that I foresee in the next few years. Before we got there, I was very aware of the infrastructure and the issues that the infrastructure presented to them, whether it be taking a long time to get something or simply not getting something at all at the time that you needed it, or the Wi-Fi issue, which I didn't realize was going to be as big of an issue as I already thought it to be. I knew it was virtually non-existent, but I knew you could get on it. What I didn't realize before getting there, outside of their state government jobs that provided them Wi-Fi, getting on the Wi-Fi as a normal person not at your 9 to 5 state job is virtually impossible. I remember I tried to get on it twice. I succeeded once, and it took me so long that the second time, after about 5 minutes of trying to get on, I just shut my phone off and figured I'd be done until I got home. So really, the entrepreneurs remaining excited despite the issues and the setbacks, especially with the infrastructure, I think will be the biggest challenge, because the excitement in the beginning is always amazing. And like the first purchase, like Kubazan, their first transaction, it's always exciting. But maintaining that in the future when it's kind of getting old, I think will be very challenging for them, but I think that they can do it, especially because of like the spirit of Cuba, which leads me to my 3 biggest takeaways. They all are kind of intertwined, but different in very little respects. The first is simply just the spirit of the Cuban people at large. I was very shocked at, this sounds weird, but I was very shocked at how amazing that they were. The energy of the Cuban people and of Cuba is honestly really intoxicating. Not only were they very friendly, but they were really happy despite what we would consider limitations and setbacks. I was ready to come home after 2 weeks. Like, I loved my experience, but I was ready for a shower with water pressure. But they have this amazing life and way of life that they kind of just draws you back in. Oh, I'm going to run over. My second one is the spirit of the Cuban entrepreneurs. Kind of going off of my first one, the Cuban entrepreneurs are really a breed of their own. Their work ethic and dedication is something to be admired, and really something we should try to emulate moving forward. Their ability to work with one another and work through, like, we consider obstacles our obstacles in relation to theirs are nothing. but their ability to move past them and succeed is really amazing. And the third one is from one of the entrepreneurs when we were asking for his advice, and it was be the best at what you do. And that was seen all over Cuba, whether it was the taxi drivers, which, they always had these old cars, but they were always immaculate. Like, you never saw pieces of trash in them. I mean, they were cleaner than my car that's a few years old. You could see it in the casas. They dedicated so much of what they had to maintaining the casas for the tourist. I mean, that was shocking to me. They would really go above and beyond what I feel like most U.S. citizens would do given the same circumstances. So what surprised me the most, and this, I don't know, this probably sounds ridiculous, but it's honestly how friendly they were to us, and then in addition, how welcoming they were when they learned that we were U.S. citizens. I wasn't entirely sure what I was going to be presented with when I got down there, and so the first few times, the first few times I said I was from the U.S., I was a little bit nervous with how they would react, but it was always the same. Welcome. Do you love it? How are you enjoying yourself? Where have you been? Which was amazing. But secondly, and I should have perhaps known a little bit about this going into it, but I didn't realize the extent to which it was a problem. But it really was, and it really did shock me, was the government's ability to take so much from the Cuban people to then reallocate it to the tourism sector. I mean, I just remember the boys not having water for 3 days because within Havana, they would give a shortage to the Cuban people so that the tourists could take their 15-minute shower every single day. So the allocation of resources from their people to the tourism sector, which is relatively new, prosperous but new, was pretty surprising. And then finally, my fun story. I feel like it's 2 weeks with so many people. There's so many fun stories. But one that really kind of bubbles to the top for me was actually on the extension trip, and it was our ride home from Trinidad. We were in kind of the same bus situation that we were in coming back from Viñales. We were all in one bus, though. And Hector or Ocial had their big boombox on, and they put on It's My Life by Bon Jovi, and the entire bus started singing. I mean, granted, it was the chorus for most of us, especially me, but the entire bus was able to, at one point, be singing in its entirety. And I remember at the beginning of the week, Hillary saying that American music really has just recently come onto the scene with the opening up of the embargo and the internet. So it was just a really cool experience to have two very different sectors in one car, kind of around the same age, certainly within the same generation, all screaming out a song that none of us were alive for. So that was pretty cool. Definitely a lot more of that one was pretty cool. I am so sorry for the time crunch on this. This is my third attempt, and I cannot get it down, so I am so sorry. But thank you. Best trip ever. So many memories. And yes, I'll see you around.